I want to thank Senator Schumer because I know he is fighting that. And I would urge Congress and the president, before putting any additional money into the payroll protection program, which is desperately needed, no doubt. But before we put additional money into that program, make sure that those dollars are getting to the small businesses and the Main Street businesses that desperately need it. I also want to thank Senator Schumer for something else. I know that he is fighting for local governments, state governments, to make sure that these governments in this time of great crisis in our nation do not fail. The last thing that we can afford in the height of this crisis and in what we know will be a long road to recovery is for our state and local governments to not be able to function because, quite frankly, they're broke. That is unacceptable. I think if we've learned anything, and I would say we've learned a lot of things, and there will be a lot of lessons that come out of this crisis, but if we've learned something that is absolutely critical, it is that government does matter. It matters every day in our lives. Government impacts our lives every day. But in times of crisis, it really matters. And we have seen that. We've seen that in the work of county government, which has at its core public health and public safety. We've seen it from the leadership of Governor Cuomo at the state level, from the work that's happening on the ground in our towns and villages, whom we communicate with every day. Government is soon, but I want to thank both the Secretary and particularly Congressman Zeldin for arranging that call, and also to our other colleagues from the congressional delegation, all of whom, in addition to Congressman Zeldin, have sent a letter. And a special thanks also to Senator Schumer, who has directly spoken to, I know, the Federal Reserve Chairman, as well as to Secretary Mnuchin on this issue. I worked very closely with two individuals who really made this happen. That's United States Senator Chuck Schumer and Congressman Lee Zeldin. Now, Senator Schumer has been on this from the beginning, and he literally walked the letter into the Secretary of the Treasury's office and said, we need to do this. He delivered the same message in speaking directly to the chairman of the Federal Reserve as well. So I want to thank Senator Schumer for his work, his advocacy. We have worked with a number of people, Congressman Zeldin, of course, who did the call with the Secretary of the Treasury, Steve Mnuchin. Senator Schumer has been working with us on this. And I also want to thank, I don't know if he's on the call, I want to thank John, our comptroller, who I've been talking about this issue with repeatedly, who sent a letter to Senator Schumer on this and also reached out to the Fed chair on this issue also. So this is a great result for us. So we're going to get some more of the details, but this literally just came out. And in the middle of all of this crises that we're in, that's a great bit of good news.
And the two biggest people responsible for coming together to get this done for the county and for Long Island, Senator Schumer and Congressman Zeldin. Senator Schumer actually took our letter, walked it into the Treasury Secretary, and said, we need to do this for Suffolk County, and by the way, it's going to help other communities as well. He did that with the Federal Reserve Chairman. And Congressman Zeldin, he lobbied the White House, lobbied the President and the Secretary of the Treasury directly, and he put me on the phone with the Treasury Secretary. Remember we were talking about watching the draft with Michael. We were looking at the Jets picks. And meanwhile, I said, Michael, I have to go into the bathroom. Don't shout if you like one of the picks. And I'm on the phone with the Treasury Secretary talking about how we need this for Suffolk County. We reached out to and connected with Senator Schumer, Congressman Zeldin, and they really helped to make this thing happen. And, Senator Schumer was critical in this. He actually walked into the Secretary of the Treasury's office and said, we need to do this for Suffolk County. We need to provide this access to the municipal liquidity facility. And he did the same thing with the chairman of the Federal Reserve. And he's been on it from the beginning.